Hello, Empowered Woman. Welcome to this episode of the Empowered Woman podcast. Today, I talked with Jerry Potter, founder of 5 Minute Social Media, who helps overwhelmed business owners create a revenue-driving social media plan they can actually keep up with. In a nutshell, we talked about doing 20% of the tasks that bring 80% results when it comes to social media marketing. Are you ready to stop posting and hoping? Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Empowered Woman podcast, the #1 show on personal growth, visibility, and profit for women entrepreneurs. If you're wanting to start believing in yourself, giving yourself permission to succeed, and let your voice be heard to make an impact in the world as an entrepreneur, this is the place for you. I am so glad that you're here. My name is Marta Spurk, and I'm your host, triplet mom, woman empowerment coach, and all things motivation extraordinaire. Welcome again, and let's dive into today's episode. Hi, Jerry. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Glad to be here.
Yay. So before we get started and I have Jerry introduce himself, I always like to start asking our listeners to start taking written notes, mental notes. There will be amazing golden nuggets here. I just know it. And I would love for you to share it with us. So once you're done with the episode, take a screenshot, share it on social media, tag me and tag Jerry as well, so we can know what resonated with you. And so we get that feedback so we can keep sharing our amazing messages. Well, I connected with Jerry through Stu, actually. The last few weeks I was in Stuville talking about his program and talking about memberships and all the things. And I'd seen Jerry around and I just love your personality. You're like such a genuine and fun person. And I love that you work with social media and marketing, which are some of my passions as well. So what really triggered this interview was that one of my clients that signed up for the membership course said that she saw you as one of Stu's examples and case studies. Stu has all the stories, right? Mm-hmm. And she really resonated with your story, and she kept telling me about you. And I was like, I know, Jerry's awesome. And I was like, you know what? I need to interview Jerry. I need to connect with him and actually have a heart-to-heart here and not just be the lurker that sees him online. So here you are. Welcome. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that we could finally connect. And I help overwhelmed business owners create a social media plan that focuses on the 20% of the tasks that bring 80% of the results. Because we can do all the things on social media, right? And unfortunately, we can't keep up with all the things on social media. So the only real sustainable plans for busy entrepreneurs are ones where we figure out what that 20% is and go all in on that. And the impact is amazing once kind of people get there, because before that we're spinning our wheels. We're, as I call it, posting and hoping. Yeah. And I kind of fell into this after thinking I was going to get fired. I worked actually for over 20 years as a radio personality or presenter, depending on the part of the world that you're in. And then, it's a very transient business. We had to move all the time. And so I was trying to find a new career so we didn't have to move anymore once we had kids. And I got this job at a startup agency, and we really connected, and they said, name your position. It was like a dream scenario. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Can I be president? And they said, well, no, not that one, but name your title. And so I said, okay, well, I want to be the creative director. And I started doing it. I started doing social media, which was part of what I did in radio the last 8 years or so, and was having some success with clients. And then one day my boss took me out for what was supposed to be a celebratory lunch. And she said, we got all these new clients coming on. And I was like, great, cheers to that. Who's going to manage them? And she said, oh, you have to manage them. And I was like, I'm already working over 40 hours a week. I've got 2 young kids. I mean, I guess I could work more. And I remember going home to my wife and thinking, I'm going to be out of work here again. And we ended up talking it through. And she said, you like to figure things out, figure it out. And so it was kind of trial by fire, but I kind of started thinking well, what if I didn't do all the stuff for our clients? And so I took our most laid back client, the one that was just like, yeah, just get it off my plate, do whatever you want. And I just started focusing on the stuff that I actually knew was making a difference and going more in on that. And engagement went up, reach went up, sales went up. Wow. So then I went to my boss and I said, hey, can I do this for another client? And off we went. And then eventually I asked if I could do it for our $100,000 a month client at this agency. And she's like, yeah, let's try and see what happens. And not only did their social media explode once we stopped trying to do all the things and focused on one network and really did a few things really well. But while their industry was trending down, their revenue was going up. And the only thing that had changed was what we were doing for them on social media. So now I just love to yell this at the top of the mountains to anybody and everybody, because it doesn't have to be as complicated as it feels. It's counterintuitive, some of the stuff that, when you take this approach. But man, once you get onto that other side, I've got one woman, Chelsea Hayes, who helps course creators, and she's figured out how to spend 60 minutes a week on social media, and she gets a new $5,000 client from that 60 minutes. So she's basically figured out how to earn $5,000 an hour from her time on social media. So it's I love what I do. I never was going to be an entrepreneur, but here I am. And so anyway, I founded a YouTube channel called 5 Minute Social Media. We've grown to, I think over 125,000 subscribers now. Amazing. And I've been able to reach over 1 million people around the world, and it's amazing. And I'm so, so grateful for it.
Oh, I love that. I was going to ask about the plaque, because I can see our listeners are not going to be able to see it, but I do see the YouTube plaque on your wall, and that's incredible. Congratulations. Oh my goodness. And I know that our listeners are going to be wanting to hear the secrets of this 20% that yields the 80% results. But I have some questions, because these are things that people ask me all of the time, and I would love to hear your take on this. Usually people will say, which platform should I pick? Which one is the best? Which one should I stick with? Or is it bad to be on all the platforms and just cross-post and repurpose? What are your thoughts on that?
So I always encourage people to pick one social media platform and go all in on it. And it's really hard for people, I know, because it's kind of, we have this thing in our mind like, oh, it's free. Why shouldn't I be on Twitter? Or, it's free marketing, but we have to come back and value our time with this stuff. And so I like to think of the social networks as, let's say you had 3 plants and you wanted them all to grow and thrive. And you have this limited resource, which is water. And let's say each plant requires a liter of water a week. Well, if you pour a liter of water on each plant, it's going to grow. But let's say you only have 1 liter, you put a third of a liter on each one. Well, none of them are going to grow and thrive, and they're probably all going to die.
Right.
Same thing happens if you've got 3 social networks. So you've got your Facebook plant, your Instagram plant, your TikTok plant, and you're dividing your limited resource, which is time, right? The truly limited resource. None of them are going to grow and thrive. And so that's why I think it's so important, and it's so hard for people to let go of those other ones. But you are going to get more clients, more customers, more revenue if you are like the big fish on one instead of just being okay across all of them. Because otherwise, you know this, Marta, you just get lost.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah, you're another life coach I know, or you're another e-commerce seller, or whatever it might be on LinkedIn, along with all the other ones. And so that's why I really encourage focusing on one. In fact, that's the first stage of in my membership. My success path is streamlining your focus, and let's figure out which one you're going to do and do well. Because I always say there's no faster way to fail than spreading ourselves too thin. And I have done that repeatedly in my life, because I like to do all the things, but that's not where any of my successes come from.
Oh, and this is perfect segue. I do want you to walk us through the steps on your framework, on your success path, because that is something that I always talk about here on the show, obviously, and especially ever since talking more about Stu and how that helped me tremendously in my business and adding that structure. But since you mentioned spreading yourself too thin, I wanted to talk about the quiz, because right before we jumped on here, I saw that you took my quiz and you scored as a doer, and it's a very doer characteristic to do all the things, obviously, which goes 100% against what you teach and what you encourage people now, which I'm assuming it's been part of your journey in realizing, oh crap, I can't do all the things. Like, that's how we teach these things, is because we learned this did not work.
Yeah.
So let me tell people. Yeah.
Yeah. As recently as last year, I was like, well, I tell everybody to focus on one and but I'm like, I'm a content creator and I'm an efficiency geek and I can figure this out. And I burnt out, and I was on a call. I have one part-time team member, and I was on a call with her, and I'm just kind of talking it through with her. And she's like, do I need to quote you back to you? Like, what are you doing here? You know better. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're so right. And so that, that was it's almost like once a year I need somebody to, virtually smack me and say, hey, let's get back to doing, few things well instead of trying to do all the stuff.
Oh gosh, that's so comforting to hear. Because we usually look up to people that seem to have it all together and forget that they're all also humans. I have a friend that she's the one that virtually slaps me at times. And she says, every person needs to puts their pants on one leg at a time. Just remember that. Even the ones that are millionaires, the ones that, have found great success, we're all people at the end of the day. We make mistakes and we struggle with things. So having that support and that accountability is huge. And at times we will still kind of falter and try to see if the grass is greener on the other side, right? I love that you justified it to yourself. That's precious. I'm a content creator. I can
I can do this. Yeah. Well, and it can be done. I mean, I privately coach companies that have a team of people doing content, and you can do all the stuff, but you cannot do it yourself. And usually you can't even do it if you have, even a full-time team member, unless that's all they do.
Right.
Because what you're going to do is you're going to put out content that's, 50 to 60% as good as it could be instead. And it's the great content, not perfect content, but it's the, what I call the 80% perfect content that's going to bring you the clients and the customers.
Totally. I love that. Okay. So walk us through. The first one is the streamlining. You can tell us more about that, more details, if you feel like there's something else that you didn't mention the first part, and then walk us through the other steps. I'm super curious.
Sure. Yeah. So I've built everything that I'm doing around this idea of being a streamlined entrepreneur. So like I have a podcast I launched last year and it's called Social Media for Streamlined Entrepreneurs. And it's getting rid of all the stuff that causes us headaches, barely has an impact. It's that 80% of tasks that only brings 20% of the results. And we just want to focus on that 20%. So these are all, I've named them all after streamlining. So stage one is streamlining your focus. The first thing is just saying, okay, I'm not going to do all the things anymore. I'm going to theoretically possibly leave money on the table because that money's not worth working for.
Right.
I want the money that's not, I hate to use the word easy, but the money that's going to come naturally to me and then more of that, not the hassle client that, texts me at 2 a.m. Whatever it might be. And so the first thing is just going, I'm done doing that. And I'm going to be streamlined now. And we streamline your focus. We pick one social network. And then I have a thing that I call the profitable pages and profiles framework, but it's basically going through and setting up your profiles and your pages so that when somebody lands there, you've done all this work to get somebody to notice you, they actually will become a follower at least, but hopefully a buyer. And so it's all the psychology around that. So that's stage one. Stage two is what we call streamlining your engagement. And a lot of people they say, I don't care about engagement. I just want sales. But when it comes to social media, engagement is what gets your posts out there to more people. But engagement also starts the conversations. It adds social proof. There's all of these other things. If you just think of as engagement as, oh, well, I got a bunch of likes and comments, it's so much more than that. And it's such an important part of the sales process. And so stage two is all about building your engagement and focusing on that. And then stage three, and there's 5, by the way, in case anyone thinks we're going to go through 31 stages. Stage 3 is streamlining your goals, or what I call your social media flashpoints. So what a lot of people do when they set up their social media is they, choose all the networks they're going to be on, and then they start posting. And then they wait for money, right? And it's like, okay, I'm doing all the things. I'm posting every day. I'm doing what all the gurus said. And the problem was there was never anything tied back to our businesses there. And so, I call this a social media flashpoint because a flashpoint is something that happens, in a story writing. It's an inciting incident. It's something that happens then triggers significant action. And so for all of our businesses, there's something that we can do on social media that triggers significant action towards somebody becoming a client, a customer, a member, a student, whatever it might be. And so it might be when somebody gets on a one-on-one call with me, I can close them. When somebody watches my webinar, when somebody joins my email list, when somebody downloads my freebie, when somebody gets a coupon code, if you're in e-commerce. But there are these things that happen. For some, it's when somebody finds out this is not as hard as they thought. So you figure out what these social media flashpoints are, and you start working those into your social media content. And it obviously can go on deeper about this, but that's the general idea. And when you start doing that, all of a sudden you are not only getting sales, but the sales are coming from social media. And all of a sudden it doesn't feel like this burden anymore, because I'll tell you, when social media brings revenue, you don't, like I mentioned, Chelsea Hayes and her $5,000 an hour on social media, which I do not have. But, when if somebody told me that gently hitting my toes with a hammer would pay me $5,000 an hour, I might consider something like that, And so it gets so much easier. And so stage 3 is all about streamlining your goals or your flashpoints so that you make sure that your social media is working. Because if it's not doing what you want it to do, if it's just getting engagement or just making you feel good as you got it off your plate, there's pointless. There's no point in having it there. It's not worth your time at that point. So, and then stage 4, we call streamlining your revenue. And this is all about growing and scaling. And so there's two primary ways to grow and scale on social media. One is spending money, obviously. The other one is an outward engagement strategy, which is outwardly engaging on other people's content for the sole purpose of growing your business. And if you have more money than time, then the spending money thing is a good way to go. But if you have no money or not enough money, the outward engagement can be really, really powerful. And Chelsea, I have tons of stories, but Chelsea's just keeps coming up. Chelsea is spending that 60 minutes outwardly engaging on other people's content. And that's where all her stuff comes from. And so the whole idea is then to use, you scale up. And once you feel like you've maximized that, then you might consider adding another social network. But, you really want to focus on that one. And then stage 5, I call streamlining your business. And this is something that I do in my more advanced program, which is called Streamliners Club more often. But this is where we start outsourcing more. This is where, you might add another social network, add more systems into place. Different things like that. And so this is where, it's basically getting what has started to work for you on social media and making sure that it goes through, applying that 20/80 principle through everything.
Oh, goodness. I love the progression. It makes so much sense. And one thing that stood out to me is the concept of giving it time to actually see the results and gather the data to then make adjustments and establish your goals and find those flashpoints and all of that. Because one thing that you said in the very first step when you were expanding on that was that people at times feel like if they do everything, they may make the money. And then by not doing that, they're going to be choosing to leave some potential money on the table.
Yeah.
And instead, thinking about the easier ways, or what came to mind to me was a sustainable way. Because there are many different strategies that people are teaching out there that sure will give you money, but are you killing yourself, right? Yeah. Are you getting stressed out of your mind? Are you doing something that you don't enjoy? Like you mentioned, Chelsea, she comments on other people's contents. And I've seen different strategies on that. Join Facebook groups, look for keywords, and then comment on people's posts. And for some people, this is great and it works out because they love interacting with others. For other people, that's not really what they enjoy. But if somebody says this is the way, then you go and you try it and it may work out and then you may burn out because it's not something that you enjoy doing. And I think oftentimes it takes people a while to find what it is that they actually enjoy and to give it enough time to know if it's something that is going to be sustainable for them. So with that, my question for you is, how long should we give it if we're actually being intentional? Because I know somebody's asking, okay, sure, I'll wait and I'll stick with one. How long, Gary?
Right. No, and it's funny because I think I did a YouTube video and a podcast episode in the last several months, how long before social media starts working. Mm-hmm. And obviously the solid answer is annoying, and that's that it depends. But I'll tell you, there's 2 levels of this. There is the immediate results, which everybody wants. And then there's the long-term results, which we also want. Mm-hmm. And so just to kind of, compare and contrast that, I always encourage people, it's like, okay, well, get something going that's going to get you something quickly and get something going that's going to build for the future. Because what happens is as we go along, we reach something that is, I call a social media tipping point. And it's, everything has a tipping point, right? But for social media, when you first start doing it, you're posting, you're creating the content, you're engaging, and you don't know if you're making any money from it. Right. And you feel like an unpaid social media intern in your own business, and you're like, I'm the founder, I'm the CEO, I'm the empowered woman. This is ridiculous. And that's why we quit. Mm-hmm. But eventually you get to a point where all of a sudden you go, wow, yeah, for every hour I'm putting in on social media, I earn $50, $100, $200, whatever it is. Or, you've figured it out and you justified it. And so that's that tipping point. But then you go past that. And that's when all of the amazing payoff happens because you are, like where Chelsea got, or I have another guy in my membership whose name is Brian Wild, and he runs a traveling zoo, and he does shows at schools and birthday parties, and so this works for all kinds of businesses. And he got to this point where he's like, I'm officially past my tipping point. I've had my best revenue month ever. I'm only doing this much on social media, and what he's done is he's built a situation where he's got his own followers referring people and recommending people and stuff like that. So it's less work for him. So, but if we think about the short term and the long term, one of the things that I've started teaching and encouraging people to do right away is the stuff that gets them a win right away. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, one of them is that, profitable pages thing where you set up your stuff so that somebody will, immediately become a buyer as soon as they find you. And the record is a guy named Tom Love in Florida who published his Facebook business page, and a woman found him searching Facebook 30 minutes later and called him and booked him. I don't know anybody else that's had that kind of thing happen, but it was because his page was set up that way. But lots of people, they go through that and they get a new client or customer within 24, 48, 72 hours. And so that's great stuff. Sometimes when somebody all of a sudden thinks about that social media flashpoint and they start using it, immediately they start getting people. And so there's this study that I talk about in a free masterclass that I teach, where marketers said you should expect to wait an average of 2 years before your social media marketing sees an impact on your sales. Ooh. And I just went, well, no wonder everybody's quitting before they see anything. That's very discouraging. Very. And so I challenge that, and I love to share these stories. And so when you get that flashpoint in there and you get your page and your profile, set up the right way, when you start posting the right kinds of content, you can see sales within days or weeks or anything like that. Now, if you don't have followers yet, obviously you have to grow the audience as well. But long term, you can also see success because what happens is as your audience grows and they're more engaged and passionate because you're doing these other things right, they sort of take over for you. Like they want to engage in everything you put up, and they want to share it with people. Like the example with Brian, and they want to tell other people about you. And so it just, the maintenance and the work that goes into it goes away. Plus, you can build these repeatable systems. The idea of I actually have a friend who's a stand-up comedian, and he posted this thing, and I have a screenshot of it I use sometimes, but he's like, so what's the idea here? We're just supposed to post something new on social media every day forever? And what a ridiculous concept for us to do. And the answer is no. Our audience usually needs to hear the same 4 to 5 things over and over again. And you can even put up the exact same thing probably every few months, right? Because they forgot about it or they need to see it again.
Exactly. That's so good. All right. So you talked about your membership. I am super curious about how it works. If you keep it open, if you have launches, and also other ways of working with you, different offers. Tell us all the scoop.
Yeah. Well, so I have 2 memberships. My main one is called 5-Minute Social Academy. And I have actually not launched since June of 2021. And the reason for that is because I wanted to move away from the launch model because it's tiring. However, it's also not open on the public side. Okay. And so what I've done is I have basically a free masterclass webinar where people come. It's called 3 Secrets to a Streamlined Social Media Strategy. And I put lots of value into that. And then in the end, as you're familiar with, you'll get an invitation to join the membership if you want to. But I did that not only so that I didn't have to be launching all the time, but also so that when people come into the membership, like they're already on the same page. They go, 2080, let's do this. Yes, I want that. I want I want to focus on things and streamline and all of that. And so the webinar, the masterclass almost serves as part of my onboarding into the membership. And so that's worked really, really well. And I don't know if I'll ever do a big open launch for it again. I do have a course that I'm launching soon, but for the membership, I may just kind of have it sit that way. And when people are ready, it's available to them.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I love that. And then, so you're launching a course, you have this other membership, but is it like a back end only for grads or exclusive? How does that other one work?
I know that your listeners can't see this, but I like that you shimmied your shoulders when you said that. Like, is it like just for
special people?
It is for very special people. It's one I created specifically for people that wanted to work more closely with me. And so it's called Streamliners Club, and they get everything that's in my main membership, 5-Minute Social Academy. And then on top of that, we start off with a quarterly one-on-one, and we plan out what I call a 90-day win. And so if they say, oh, I want to launch a course, I want to launch a membership, I want to get this many new customers, I want to get this system in place. And so on that call, we'll go through and we'll basically lay out the steps to do that. And the goal at the end of the call is, if you do this stuff, you'll hit this goal in 90 days. And then we also have weekly group coaching calls where they can come, and if they get stuck, or accountability or encouragement or whatever they need to help them reach that 90-day goal. And so I kind of call 5-Minute Social Academy sort of the, DIY. You can come in, you can learn the strategies, you can get help. There's still support. I host a monthly Q&A, stuff like that. But the Streamliners Club is more of a done with you thing, where I'm like, I know all of them and their businesses on a much higher level, and we get to have more advanced conversations and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, I love that. And I would love all the links and information for your masterclass so people can get to see if the membership is a fit for them. And obviously we'll get all of that in the show notes. But before I ask you how to find you and all the things, are you ready for rapid fire?
Yeah, you warned me about this. And she said, I like to make people nervous, so we're going to do this. And I was like, oh, good. I'm ready, though. I'm ready.
Yeah, no, well, and I love your story that you used to work in radio. That is so fun. So I know you like spontaneity, probably, and you're totally fine with things like that, because that's how things work when you're on air. You just have to come up with stuff. So
yeah, radio, improv. I've done many things where you have to be ready for anything, and so yes, bring it on. Is there a timer? Is there going to be a buzzer that goes off if I don't answer fast enough? Okay.
No, it's not that intense.
Okay.
All right. So the first one is notice yourself.
And I just say whatever comes to mind with that. Mm-hmm. Oh man, I know the power of self-awareness, but sometimes I get really uncomfortable looking within because I, discover things that make me uncomfortable. Like that question.
I so resonate. Like that question. Next one. Listen to yourself.
I think I do a good job of this, listening to my body, my priorities, the people around me.
Mm-hmm. Next is forgive yourself.
I am a recovering perfectionist and a classic overthinker. And so I don't have many regrets in life. And even as I've tried to improve who I am and fail faster, as they say, I'm still pretty happy with most things that I've done. And so I don't feel a lot of need to forgive myself.
Fail faster. I don't think I've heard that. And that so describes how I do stuff.
Yeah. Well, and that,
Just get through it.
Yeah. Can I do a quick tangent really quick?
Sure.
Okay. Because I didn't know if I didn't want to throw off the question. So I recently went through this thing called the Breakthrough Challenge from a guy named Seth Ellsworth. And it's the whole idea is and I saw this in some of your stuff too, actually, Marta, like you're already the person that you want to be. You just need to start being that person. Right. So it reminded me of that when I saw that in your stuff too. And so, anyway, in this challenge, one of the things is you write down the traits of the virtues of the person that you want to be. And then you say, what do those people do? And basically the idea is you start doing those things too. Yeah. And so if you want to be a fit person, what do fit people do? Well, they start the day with a healthy breakfast. So you start doing that. And one of them is I want to be confident. And I'm like, what do confident people do? I'm like, I don't know. They're born with swagger. Like, I don't know what goes on this list. But one of the things that I came up with afterwards was they just try and don't worry about if it's going to fail or not. And they just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And so that's something I've added to my business and my life in the last 6-7 months. And it's made a massive difference, is normalizing the idea of failure. Because if you overthink things or you're a recovering perfectionist like me, you will literally talk yourself out of doing everything and you'll never get anywhere.
That's so powerful. I love that tangent. Thanks for that.
Okay.
Next one is empower yourself.
One of my favorite things about my business is empowering other people. And it's literally what lights me up and gets me out of bed in the morning is this idea of, even I don't ever promise to make somebody love social media, but I can make social media work for just about anybody. And like I said, even if they still hate it when there's money coming in, they hate it less, right? But empowering myself is something that I never hold back on, because if I decide I want to do something, I'm going to get myself the resources, the tools, or the support to make sure that I can do it well, and do it fast.
And I will go on a quick tangent here, because you said I don't promise anyone to love social media. I actually heard I was listening to this mentorship call last week, and the lady said, stop talking crap on social media if you're using social media to grow your business. Because we get frustrated and we're like, I hate social media. I hate social media. And it's like, what do you expect to gain out of it if this is the attitude that you're going with? You don't necessarily have to fall in love with it, right? Like what you're saying, but it's just like any other relationship. If you keep poo-pooing it, how are you going to get something good out of it? And that's exactly what you help people with. And it is very empowering. So,
well, and part of that is stopping, not thinking about it as this, these conglomerate companies anymore, and just think of it as a people connection tool.
That's so true.
And I know when the tech doesn't work, it's hard to think of it, in that way. Oh, yeah. But that's one of the things that I love talking to people about, is like, look, this is just a way for you to have conversations with your ideal people all over the world in your pajamas. This is amazing.
Totally. Just show some gratitude, be grateful for it, and look on the brighter side of it, because that is empowering, instead of victimizing yourself and saying it's social media's fault that my business is not growing and people is not seeing my stuff, which is not true.
Yes.
Love that.
Yes.
And last but not least, transform yourself.
It's interesting. I never did anything with self-development or self-help, as it used to be called, until people decided they didn't like that phrase, or anything like that, until just several years ago. And I had jury duty, and I was riding the bus every day for like an hour each way downtown to Seattle, where I lived at the time. And I just started listening to this random audiobook, and it opened, and it wasn't even a book that I enjoyed that much, but it opened my eyes to the fact that, like, oh my gosh, I can be I can be better. I can have a better life. I can do all of these things. And it doesn't mean that I need help or anything like that. And that was the thing that really opened the door for me. And since then, several mentors, including Stu McLaren, several books that have really just, I look at who I am now, and I think back to, who I was before I started this, journey. And I'm like, sometimes I go, well, what if I started this when I was 20 instead?
Right.
But I believe that, everyone can have so much more for themselves, and they just have to kind of figure out what their why is and then make it happen.
So true. I love that so much. Well, Jerry, thank you so much. This was so fun. Tell us how people can find you to go figure out how to do 5-minute social media.
Yeah. Well, so, I'm in all the places. But if you want to go to my website, it's 5minutesocialmedia.com, FIVE, minutesocialmedia.com. And if you can search that on YouTube, it'll come right up. But if you want to connect with me personally, definitely do so on Instagram. I love connecting with people there. And it is Mr. Jerry Potter, Mr. Jerry Potter is my Instagram username.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was so fun. So many golden nuggets. I'm so excited to hear people's feedback, and I appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thank you, Marta. Have a great day.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. Don't forget to connect with Jerry. All the links are in the show notes. And once again, if you haven't yet, please leave me a review for the show. As you know, there is no like button or comment button on podcasts, but there is a review option. So go on ahead, rate and review the show. And if you've already done that, then connect with me on social media. Share your thoughts on this episode. Share your suggestions for future guests and future topics. Until next time, bye.